What's up, everybody? Welcome back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. That's the 40-year vet, Tim May. I am Spencer Holbrook. Tim, we just heard from Justin Frye, the offensive line coach, Larry Johnson, the defensive line coach, Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator, and head coach Ryan Day of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And we're here to break it all down on a practice report presented by Byers Auto. Tim.
Wait a minute, we don't get an off week?
No,
Okay.
Actually we don't. It's not in our contract, and it's not really in the rules of covering college football here. There's no off weeks at LettermanRow.com. We cover Ohio State athletics and Ohio State football really all season long, and all year long for that matter. But a lot to learn from this off-week press conference with Ryan Day, our only media opportunity with these Buckeyes all week before they get ready for Iowa here in a couple weeks. Rest and recover. Like I said, a lot to learn, Tim. Let's get started.
Well, the number one thing we learned is that Mike Hall has a tremendous get-off. Mike Hall played, 7, 8 snaps the other day at Michigan State.
7.
And had 2.5 sacks.
3.5.
Well, yeah.
3.5 if you count the penalty on Zach Harrison. So, I mean, half of his plays were sacks.
Yes, that's tremendous. I mean, that's a tremendous outing. No matter what sport you're in, what endeavor you're in, whether you're picking stocks or whatever, that was crazy. I'm going to write about him later in this week just because there's a guy that, man, if he can just get totally healthy, and one of the reasons he only had those 7 snaps is because they wanted him to get some playing time, but he's been bothered by a little nagging injury. Of course, they didn't get specific about that, but my goodness, going into the second half of this year, he's definitely established himself as one of the terrors on the defensive front line in the Big Ten and basically the country. With that said, the other thing you learned that really matters is that they do expect to have Mayan Williams back next week when they host Iowa. They would like to have Jackson Smith-Njigba back if things go well, and really that's the biggest news I think from an injury front.
Yeah, Ryan Day did say that he is under the expectation that a lot of guys will be back for that Iowa game. Who exactly? Didn't get into specifics, and he's not going to get into specifics, to be honest with you. If you ask him about a guy specifically, he will start to dive in a little bit and maybe scratch a little below that surface, but you're not going to get much on the injury front from Ryan Day.
Yeah, but he does expect he was pretty specific about Mayan Williams probably being available. Jackson Smith-Njigba, like we keep talking about, he's got this hamstring deal that he's been dealing with, but it's almost up to him from the standpoint of he's the one that has to feel like it's 100%, it's ready to go.
I agree.
And so that's why that's always an open book, so to speak, because he did come back too early. Maybe suffer another sort of malady to it, but he did basically come back probably too early when he tried to play against Toledo, and it didn't work. So that's why that's up in the air, and there's no reason to get too specific about it because we don't really know the specificity of it.
Well, and when you factor in, Tim, the off week, the idle week, the bye week, as some would say, but that's wrong. Jackson Smith-Njigba will now have been out for 5 weeks, and the typical timetable for a hamstring injury.
But all hamstring injuries are not created equal.
I'm well aware of that, but the typical hamstring injury is a 3 to 6, 7 week deal.
Yeah.
If you have a middle of the road hamstring injury.
Yeah, but only you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not like when you open heart surgery and you go in and you replace 3 arteries that are clogged. Well, the other guy might have 5. What I mean? It's more like it's hamstring. Every injury is specific to that person and can be totally different. You can call it a hamstring injury, but can have so much more going on in there than a slight hamstring strain or something. And that's what they're dealing with. We don't really need to get into that. I mean, the bottom line is he's going to play when he feels like he's 100% ready to go again, because he definitely pushed it the first time. And you're not going to say he made a mistake. He felt like he was ready to go against Toledo, but things didn't work out.
That was the Medical Hour presented by Letterman Row. Now back to the practice report presented by Byers Auto. A lot of other things to learn, Tim. A lot about Mike Hall. Larry Johnson even stepped up to the podium and just said out loud 2 words, Mike Hall, because he knew he was going to get a lot of questions about him. So you're going to cover that extensively at LettermanRow.com later this week. But let's talk about I learned a lot about this offensive line, the way Justin Frye approaches it, the way he operates. He's a really impressive guy to talk to, not only with the media, but just, around the building and the way he interacts with people. That's a rising star in the coaching industry. Ohio State needs to appreciate him because, Tim, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how long he's going to be around here.
Well, I mean, unless he becomes a head coach, where's he going to go that's, in his mind, even that's better than here?
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. Offensive line coaches are becoming more and more head coaching candidates. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that role sometime in the near future, next few years. We all thought Jeff Hafley would be here longer than 1 year, too.
Yeah.
So,
true that.
You don't know. But, Justin Frye, the way he's coaching these guys, the way he's instilled new schemes, new dynamics, new things into this offense, incorporated them all, and raised the talent level of this team. Paris Johnson has a ton of talent. I think he's even been elevated in his play by the coaching job of Justin Frye. DeJuan Jones, same way. They've really developed him well. Donovan Jackson, a former 5-star guy who's really progressed under Justin Frye and gotten a lot better. This unit's cooking right now, Tim, as the kids say. They're helping in the run game. Paris Johnson, those guys barely give up any sacks. I think they've allowed 4 sacks this year in 6 games. That's a really impressive statistic there. I'm just blown away by the progression. Everybody talks about the progression of the defense, but the progression of the offensive line has been a huge underlying story in this season so far through 6 games.
Modern day this guy's a modern day offensive line coach. That's what I like about him. He brings, how do you explain? He brings a lot of theory to bear, but he makes it simple to understand the way I understand it. You heard me ask him about just you've got to get these guys fired up to play physical, to be in a heavyweight. It's like a heavyweight boxing match. I know there's one guy that doesn't like that analogy, but offensive line play is definitely that, but it's a sweet science because just like boxing is, because as physical as you've got to be and willing to just stick your head in there and just move a guy 6 inches, in a goal line situation, you've got to be technically sound when you do that. And then the other thing is you've got to be athletically willing to get up and move and pull, chase things to the edge, run a stretch play. Donovan Jackson, the way he pulls and gets to the edge, etc. There are all kinds of things that are demanded on offensive line that really hardly any other position in any other sport you can't really compare it to. Because you're out there, the defensive line may be running fresh guys in and out every 3 or 4 plays. You're out there for the duration, so you've got to be physically fit, and then you've got to be mentally fit because of what's going on in front of you and dealing with it. And then on top of that, you've got to be willing to fight. And that's hard to get 5 guys continually sharp on all 3 of those levels. And I've been impressed so far by the way not just the way this offensive line started the year, but the way it's progressed. I thought Saturday at Michigan State, and I even said that to him, was almost a clinic in the way you play both physically and in the way you adapt from one play to the next, the way you adapt during a play. They picked up so many stunts and blitzes and stuff on Saturday. It was crazy, and gave C.J. Stroud a pretty quiet pocket for the most part. And I know I'm going off on this, but that is always the key to having a great offense, is that launching pad. And I think Ohio State is progressively getting to right there among the elite in the country, if not the best.
Just so the folks know, I checked my watch, not because Tim was long-winded, but because we are on a time crunch here. Ohio State's getting ready to take the field for practice.
But you did it for both reasons.
No,
go ahead.
Not at all. I never mind when you talk, Tim. I promise, folks. Tim, let's switch gears a little bit. Really good stuff about the offensive line from Justin Frye, and then also really good stuff from both Ryan Day and Jim Knowles, some insight into that Ohio State cornerback room. With Jordan Hancock starting to ramp back up, maybe we'll see him against
Another
Iowa,
hamstring deal.
Yeah, but I think that one's a little more serious than the one Jackson Smith-Njigba endured as far as longevity of how long he's out. Actually, I know that because he hasn't been doing anything since before the season started. But he could be potentially ramping back up to get back into game action. And then you talk about the 2 starters, Denzel Burke and Cameron Brown, who, we'll put it this way, it's been shaky the first 6 weeks, and they're in position. The problem is not that they're not in position, Tim. They've been in position on almost every play this year. The problem is finishing the play. And it's really as simple as that, finishing the play. That's not from my mouth, because I know that it's very, very difficult to finish a play. That's from Ryan Day and from Jim Knowles. They both know these guys are immensely talented, But when you talk about trying to finish a play, that's been the, as you like to say, the bugaboo for Ohio State this year so far on the edges. Cameron Brown and Denzel Burke have the talent, and they have the confidence for sure from Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Now they have the confidence in themselves. I think this is a really important 2 weeks to get their confidence level back up so they can go out and execute over the next 6 weeks to get Ohio State where it wants to go.
Yeah, there are times when both of these guys, have gotten a little handsy, for want of another term, because you can almost see the anxiety they're playing with as opposed to the eagerness.
Yeah.
Sometimes when it's clear that occasionally they've been picked on. It is what it is, right? We all know Denzel Burke is capable of playing on a very high level. He did last year. We know Cam Brown is too, but Cam Brown was coming out of a week that he missed. He missed the week before because he'd been banged up. And if I remember, did he miss 2 weeks in a row or just that week?
I think just one.
But the bottom line is, you're out there, wanting to prove yourself on every play, and sometimes things just start going bad for you, and you start chasing your tail. Now, the essence of playing the 50-50 ball, etc. I urge you to watch my podcast this week or listen to my podcast this week with Marlon Kerner, because we get into that specifically about not just being there when like a 50-50 ball is thrown or a back shoulder throw is thrown. That's, the so much in vogue pass now. It has been for several years now, but it's even more and more because it's very difficult for me to cover you thinking you're going to sprint to the corner of the end zone and you stop suddenly and go back there, but the ball's already been thrown. That's almost impossible.
Was that a good way
to
say
that? Yes. Actually, yeah, or just turn like this. But mainly you want to turn into the guy so maybe you can get pass interference called on you if nothing else. But he goes through this about him. This guy played in the NFL along with Ohio State. He goes through what he has watched from these guys. He thinks both these guys are very talented. He thinks they've played pretty well for the most part. But on those plays where they stick out, they're throwing it out there for a reason, because it's their guy against you. It's not their guy against 5 or 6 other Buckeyes. Mm-hmm. That's why teams are attacking Ohio State on the edges, and it's going to get more so because this defense is getting better by the moment. But he goes through the rudiments of having to just fight through those things, but of also getting yourself in proper position to make the play. And it's funny because the way you staged that question a while ago, or staged that build-up, Gary Blackney was a defensive coordinator here back in the 1980s, and ended up going on becoming head coach at Bowling Green, et cetera. But he once made an interesting comment to me and a guy named Bruce Hooley, who was covering the team back then. He goes, our job is not to coach a guy to get into position to make a play. Our job is to coach a guy to make the play. That's the way coaches take it. It's all interwoven. Like Jim Knowles pointed out, an even better pass rush throws that quarterback off, and he can't throw that pass maybe.
Yeah.
Or he can't just stand in there and wait for his man to make his move, etc. So it all works basically like an engine. But the bottom line is, once the ball is out there, your last shot is your cornerback or your safety making that play.
Yes.
And so that they're definitely going to be honing on that, because like I said, more of that is coming, because that's the way teams are going to have to attack this defense. This Ohio State defense.
Ohio State has 2 weeks now, Tim, to get those things corrected. I think 11 days until the Buckeyes take on Iowa in the Horseshoe. That's a nooner. We found that out yesterday.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Iowa at noon on Fox, October 22nd. We'll be there. We'll be in the Horseshoe for that one. Tim May, the 40-year vet. I'm Spencer Holbrook. As we wrap things up on a practice report presented by Byers Auto, a lot to take away from this Ryan Day press conference. This Justin Fry, Larry Johnson, Jim Knowles press conference. We'll have full coverage of it at Letterman Row, as we do with the Buckeyes football team all year long. Tim, a lot to break down. It's definitely not an off week, and we're going to have plenty of coverage to provide. You can find it all for $1 for the entire year. That's a hell of a deal, Tim. I keep saying it. Also, hit the little bell below. You can get a notification every time we publish one of these fine
Can I make
videos.
one more comment for you before we sign off?
This is your show, too.
I've been around, like you said, I've been around for a long time.
40 years.
This is my 50th year covering football in some form, going back to the Lufkin News, way back when, my 50th season. But I want to tell you, it is such a joy to talk to these high-end, high-level coaches. Jim Knowles, sharp as they come. Larry Johnson, sharp as they come. And also, where he's been, the tread that's off his tire, but he's still got a lot of tread left. You know what I mean? I mean, he's been there. And then Justin Fry, just sort of a breath of fresh air. This is a modern day offensive line coach. You can tell by the way he talks about it, by the way he talks about the game. It's of course, Ryan Day, you heard me ask him, as I'm writing a story about that later this week too, and we've talked about it. Yes, they do throw things into the game plan, new stuff from week to week. And one of the reasons is to give guys they're going to be facing down the road more stuff to prepare for.
Yeah.
To make them cover the waterfront, so to speak. And if you just cover the waterfront against this offense, there are going to be so many docks open, and they know that. So I was trying to think of the best analogy. I thought I came up with a pretty good one there, right off the snap.
Well, 2 weeks now, like I said, to prepare for Iowa, and then after that, you got a road trip to Penn State, a big one on deck after this Iowa trip to Columbus. So we'll be there. We'll have full coverage of it all year, all season and all year at LettermanRoad.com. That's Tim May, the 4-year vet. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the latest practice report presented by Byers Auto. We will see you back on Wednesday for another breakdown of this Ohio State football team.